This is Focus with Jack Caudill.
Good evening, I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking about the push to end neighborhood violence here in Rapid City. Two guests with us this month to talk about that. Erik Bringswhite, he is the founder and director of the Institute of Indigenous American Legacy, better known as I Am Legacy. They're out there at the Rushmore Mall. And Lieutenant Tim Doyle with the Rapid City Police Department. He is the department's community engagement lieutenant. A little background, this push has been going on for quite a while, but it's come to the forefront again with some incidents lately in the Knollwood area of town. Fatal stabbing there in the area on June 8th, on June 10th. Shots fired. Thankfully, no one was injured in that one, but there were bullet holes found in walls and windows. And then on July 5th, two people were found shot in a parking lot. One of them ended up dying. We're going to start with you, Erik, as you look at the situation up in that area of town. What is going on up there that you're seeing in that area?
What we're seeing is the effects of trauma, and you know, the younger people are incorporating these behaviors into our community, which is alarming. The younger they experience these traumas, the more intimate they are intertwined with those traumas, and everything is just becoming a continuation of that violence that they're exposed to at younger and younger ages.
Is that leading to more violence these days than there were in the past?
Well, it's important to recognize when we're seeing trauma as a community, because trauma is a strange experience. If you don't transition or have the processes to transition through those traumas, then the likelihood of transferring those traumas is greater.
Now, when you talk about trauma, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about a lot of the predominant experience for some of the folks in some of our community. Violence, this violence. It's a cycle. What we're seeing is cycles of this violence. I guess substance-related issues. It's just these communities haven't had the opportunity to focus on healing, and they're navigating as best they can, and through this misguided, misled, misinformed mindset is just allowing this trauma and these cycles to become sustaining in some of these communities.
Tim, from a police perspective, what do you see when you look at what's going on in that part of town?
We're seeing the same thing. I'm going to piggyback off something that Erik said about trauma. These things that we see, the violence, you know, whether it's adults or youth or suicide or whatever it is, the drug use, all that stuff, a lot of it stems from trauma. And that's one of the reasons why, as law enforcement, we can only do, you know, so much about this. This is where we need the community's help to kind of help us step in or to have other people step in and help heal that trauma. That's not our specialty. You know, this is where, you know, people like Erik and his programs can come in and help these people, because coming in and making arrests and putting people in jail and prison doesn't fix that trauma. It may take someone out of the home for a while, but it doesn't heal the rest of that home. And then when the person comes back, if the healing still hasn't happened, then we're going to see a continuation with the same behavior.
So Erik, if this trauma is that ingrained from generation to generation sometimes, how do you take that step to step out of that cycle?
So in a lot of the communities that we're focusing on, the similarity is Native American people are Indigenous people. And as Indigenous and Native American people, we have eons and eons of health, of wellness, and of healing that we can tap into when addressing these contemporary issues. And that is where we begin. Culture is the cure. Culture is prevention. Culture heals.
You talk about this has gone back generations. How do you get the young people today, the adults of today, to go back and consider what you're talking about has been generations of healing?
Well, we root them. We have ceremony. And it's kind of a real deep issue. But we do have unique strategies. We've lived through, these strategies have come to us through lived experience. And that's, we don't pretend to know everything about this situation. We don't own the situation. It's important to get the community involved, give them the opportunity to start telling their own story. And usually that, people behave in a way that makes them feel visible, but they start to heal once they feel heard.
Tim, and I'm looking at the police department and your role in all of this. What is your role? You say you guys can't do everything. There's a limit. What can you do?
Well, I mentioned, help from the community and people like Erik. And right now, when people have a problem, they pick up the phone, they call the police department, so we come. And maybe we get to a point where instead of calling us, there's services and stuff where they call directly and you take us completely out of the loop. We're okay with that because we're still going to have plenty to do with just our regular policing. But right now we have, with our community engagement unit, with youth outreach and community outreach with Tyler Reed, who's stationed in one of these neighborhoods, it can get overwhelming to try to think about how do we fix this community-wide issue. So I try to look at it one kid at a time, one family at a time. What can we do for this kid? What can we do for this family? And like Erik said, sometimes that's just hooking them up with the culture, which some of them have really never had the opportunity to experience. And a lot of times you give them that experience, and you can change it really quick. Sometimes it seems like this is an impossible thing to fix, but it's not. I'm sure we've both seen, transitions happen, quickly when you get the right intervention into one of these families. But one thing that I see where the system kind of fails at is if we're going to try to help a youth, then we have to help the whole family. Because if you try to just work with the youth and then you send them back into the family and the whole family hasn't healed, that youth is going to fall right back into the same behavior. You got to heal the whole family. And that's not, it's easy to say, but it's not always easy to do. And that's where, our role now is outreach is to if we're going to be the ones to respond, we do what we need to do, and then we try to send them somewhere where they can get the help and the healing that they need.
Looking at that, how big of a change is that in philosophy of what you might consider old-time policing?
It's different. Some people call it social work, and I don't know what you call it, but it's all a piece. There's no one fix for everything. Sometimes you need the police to come and arrest somebody. Sometimes you need something in the middle. Sometimes it's something really simple that this family needs to kind of spin them onto the right path. So it's not traditional, but the standard way that we've always done things, it's not working, or we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation, and things would be getting better and not getting worse, and we wouldn't be on this constant cycle. So, as law enforcement, we have to be willing to say what we're doing, we could be doing better. Let's try some different things.
All right, we got to take a break. Will we continue with our look at ending community violence when we continue with this month's edition of Focus? I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus, talking about ending the cycle of neighborhood and community violence. Erik Bringswhite is the founder and director of the Institute of Indigenous American Legacy, I Am Legacy. How did your organization come to be, and what exactly do you guys do?
Well, there was such a huge need in our community and surrounding communities as well. What we do is every community, every group, every individual has traditions, has virtues and values, has a culture. Those are strengths that we could build upon that'll facilitate a change of lifestyle in our community. And that's all we're doing. We're just trying to, these changes are self-sustaining through lifestyle change. So this is the way we live our lives. Basically, that is what we're offering. We have processes to address and navigate through hardships, traumatic experiences, even abuses, but cultural-based solutions to those issues.
Now, when you look at all the other things that kids have today, you've got video games, you've got all this stuff. How tough is it to bring young people back to that and away from what else is going on in the world? Is that a challenge today?
Absolutely. The world is at our fingertips today, with our cell phones and social media. But when do we take a step back from the global issues and the world issues and focus back on our community and our groups? This is how we do it at Legacy. We have everyday programming, and mostly when you hear feedback from the youth is there's nothing to do. There's not enough to do. Oh, I'm bored with this, I'm bored with that. And older people even doubt change. That change can happen, and what I'm saying is come to Legacy and walk with us for 30 days and we'll show you real change.
Do you feel like you're making progress?
Absolutely.
How so?
How so is we've served probably 1,000 people. This is since the pandemic though. We didn't close during the pandemic, but we've addressed a lot of the hurts and a lot of the harms that are perceived by individuals that come and share at our center. We have a NA group nightly for older folks who just need something else to lean on, in these kind of times. We do have a mechanism to capture and measure what we're doing at Legacy, and we just go on data on that.
How much do drugs play a part in the problems that we're seeing out there?
Drugs are a big an issue in our community in general. You got this hurt that's this big and no opportunity to process or navigate through it. The need to alleviate that hurt is this big, so it's just kind of a misguided attempt at alleviating our own pain, and people are suffering, and this is the importance of having community-based solutions for those kind of issues, because we don't incarcerate, we're not law enforcement, we're not probation officers, but we do have the ability to assist you in navigating through a lot of those hurts and those harms. And if we cannot, we have partners that we can pass you to that could better meet your needs.
Lieutenant Tim Doyle is with the Rapid City Police Department. He is the Community Engagement Lieutenant. As you look at the drug problem in town, how much of that plays into this whole problem that we're having?
I mean, it's a big part. A lot of our really violent crime has to do with meth. We still have a big meth problem in this community, but the drugs aren't the issue. Like we've already talked about, the stuff underneath is the issue, and you kind of have to deal with the drugs before you can, and the addictions before you can deal with the stuff underneath. But we see the same thing with alcohol and a lot of other things, and that's where we need to get better at getting down to the core issue of, I've worked a lot with youth in my career as a police officer, and whether it's the kid going towards crime or gang activity or drugs or or suicide even. It's all kind of coming from the same place. So we see all these things out here, but it's all, until you get to the core issue and you start addressing that, that's where you break the cycles. That's where, you know, you help that youth or that adult break that behavior.
Now, Eric's talked a lot about community. Rapid City Police, you have a lot more community engagement programs than you've had in the past. What are you guys adding over time? What all are you doing now as far as community engagement?
Well, I've already mentioned we have Tyler up in an office up what we call the ABCs. He does outreach. He has, he kind of that's his neighborhood now. You know, he's an employee of the police department, but he put out a Facebook Live message after the first shooting, where thankfully no one was shot, but there was youth. There was 12 to 15-year-olds involved in that shooting. He did a Facebook Live post where you could see, the emotion on that post, because that's his neighborhood and those are his kids. He sees these kids every day, and he wants to protect those kids. And there's a lot of good people in that neighborhood who just want a safe place to live, and that's where that first the march came in, where the kids and the adults walked around the three neighborhoods carrying anti-violent signs, and that's to give the kids in the neighborhood some hope. A lot of these folks don't have that right now. They see the violence in their neighborhood, and some of them see it in their own home, and they just need some hope. They need some positive things to focus on, because that the social media world that we're all tapped into and that the kids are tapped into, it's not always the real world. And we're missing what's happened right around us when we're focusing on all the other noise that's out there. And I think that's part of the reason these kids struggle, is they're never disconnected from that. And that just kind of adds to the issues with their mental health. So we have Tyler, we have a youth outreach team that we're getting up and going, and the purpose of that team, and we're going to have 3 officers that are doing that work. They're plainclothes officers, and they're going to fill the gap that we see where we see a kid headed down a certain road with certain lower level behaviors, and we know where they're going. But until we can intervene earlier, because a lot of the resources go towards the back end. We're fighting the fires on the back end and trying to keep up. But what about this kid who's 8 years old, who's already showing signs they're going to struggle? Like, what can we hook that kid and that family up to before they go down this path? Let's get them now before they head down some of these other roads.
All right, we've got to take another break. We'll continue our look at fighting neighborhood violence when we continue with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus, talking about the fight to fight neighborhood violence here in Rapid City. Lieutenant Tim Doyle is a community engagement lieutenant with Rapid City Police. When you experience this kind of stuff day after day, year after year, how do you keep people from just accepting that this is just the way things are?
I mean, it's easy to do, I think, for a community as a whole. That there's just always going to be a certain amount of violence, but when you go have contact with these families and these kids, and you see the pain they're experiencing, then you can't just accept it. So for those of us who kind of live in this world of seeing it every day, I mean, accepting it and just letting it go is not an option. So we're always going to fight it. We're always going to do what we can do to try to help these kids and these families, and it makes it easier for us because we see it, and it's hard to accept it when you have to look that kid in the eye and you're going to decide if you're going to give up on them or not.
Erik Bringswhite is the founder and director of I Am Legacy here in Rapid City. You grew up here. You grew up in the middle of all of this. How did that prepare you to kind of fight against this now?
I think it's just a matter of viewing what gangs really are. Gangs are a product of a group of individuals who have similar pains and hurts, same traumas, socioeconomic struggles. And when I was growing up, I thought I had found the solution to much of life's problems. and that was my gang. Today I see it as a nonverbal cry for help. And people are in distress, and people are hurting, and they're navigating towards something that they perceive stands for something, and something that is strength-based, strong. So they're trying to survive something, and empowering them to tell us what that is one of the the most important aspects of this work.
At what point did you decide you wanted out of that and we're going to get on the other side of all of this?
The same factors that allowed me to be in a gang, to allowed me to be in juvenile and adult incarceration, to experience a lot of this violence, are the same factors that pushed me to college, pushed me to have a seat at the table, and actually why I'm doing this interview today is the fight hasn't changed. It's still there, it just how we choose to do it has changed, and we're evolving and addressing these harms, these hurts, best we can today, with the tools that we have left.
Tim, what else do you have to do? What else do you see down the road to try to bring all of this under control?
It's more help from the community. Some people think that crime is just a police problem, and it's not. It's a family problem, it's a neighborhood problem. We have some kids growing up in our community with terrible trauma, and that should bother everybody. It shouldn't just bother people on the north side of town, that should bother everybody. And we can't, the police aren't the solution. We're part of the puzzle, but we can't fix these issues. We can respond when we're needed, we can respond to the emergency, but to end the cycles and to heal these neighborhoods, we want to be a part of that, but we can't be the whole piece. That's why these partnerships with other people in the community, we need that. So you're going to continue to see the police partner with nonprofits and social workers and whatever you want to call it, but we need the community's help with these issues because we can't do it on our own.
All right, Erik, we're just about out of time. If somebody wants to get a hold of you guys and get involved and get some help from you, what do they do? How do they reach out to you guys?
The easiest way is a walk-in. We're located in the old Army-Navy Recruitment Center in the Rushmore Mall. We're there 8 to 8 every day except Wednesday. Wednesday we're only there till 5. The other way is you could call or look, we have a Facebook page, we have a website, and it has our information listed on both of those.
Are you open to everybody?
We're open to everybody. We're not ethnicity based, we're not gender or age, everybody has a place in Legacy.
All right, we're out of time. Erik Bringswhite, Lieutenant Doyle, thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us. See you again next month for the next month's edition of Focus.